Hi, my name is Rachel Paxton, and today I'm going to show you how to make crock pot apple butter. What will you get out of this class? In this class, you will learn how to make crock pot apple butter, and I will lead you through the process step by step. I'll give you the recipe and the canning supply list that is included with your course materials. You can download them and print them out for future reference, and you'll also gain the confidence you need to try more jam and jelly recipes on your own. My name is Rachel Paxton, and I'm a freelance writer and mom of 5 children, ages 28 to 6. I've been canning for more than 20 years, and I'm the owner of the website creativehomemaking.com. And the picture here is a picture of my husband Dave and I. We've been married for 20 years, and 3 of my children are here. This is Zachary and Christian, who are almost 11. They're twins, and Trenton is 6. We also have 2 daughters, ages 28 and 26. For this recipe, you will need approximately 25 medium-sized apples, a tablespoon of lemon juice, a tablespoon of vanilla extract, a cup of sugar, a cup of brown sugar, and cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. For supplies, you will need a boiling water canner, a canning rack if you're using your own stock pot, a jar lifter, wide mouth funnel, pint or half pint canning jars. You'll need 3 or 4 pint jars for this recipe, or 7 or 8 half-pint jars. You'll also need a crock pot, a potato masher, and an immersion blender, which is optional. This is what the boiling water canner looks like. In your supply list that I've included for you to download, there are links to Amazon to all these different items to see which ones that I recommend. And for about $32, you can get a kit that includes the canner, the rack that goes in the bottom of the canner, and it also comes with the jar lifter and the funnel and a couple other things, all for about $32. So that's a good deal if you don't already have something like that. This is what the canning rack looks like. Your canner will come with one of these, but if you'd like to use your own stock pot, you can purchase one of these for about $10, because you can't put the jars directly on the bottom of the pot. This keeps them up off the bottom so they won't break. This is what the jar lifter looks like. The wide mouth funnel is really nice. You can't use a regular funnel for canning because the funnel will not stand in the jar like this one does. This one sits in place nicely so that you don't have to hold on to it while you're ladling stuff into the jars. Okay, now this is where we get to talk about apples. I love to go fruit picking. My kids don't like it so much, but I love to, and so I wanted to share with you some of my tricks for getting inexpensive apples. Apples are expensive at the store, and of course you're not going to be able to buy enough apples at the store to make apple butter and make it worthwhile. It would be too expensive. So hopefully, maybe you have an apple tree in your backyard that you have apples on, and if not, maybe you have a family member or a neighbor who's willing to give you apples for free. Or maybe you can trade them for something else that you have. Another thing we do is in the summertime, one of the places we go camping has wild apple trees that have grown up over the years. And if the bears don't, or the deer don't get to them first, then we like to pick lots of free apples there. And the great thing about that is the apples don't have to be perfect. If they have a few little wormholes or they're really sour, you wouldn't want to eat them, but they're great for making applesauce and apple butter, so we like to use those apples for that. When you add sugar to them, you can't taste their original flavor anymore. And another place you can get apples is orchards. That's where I get a lot of my apples when I can't get them from anywhere else. You need to shop around. Apples are not the same price at every orchard, and you can get them at different times of year. Some orchards let you pick them yourself and will offer you a better deal if you pick them yourself, and some places will pick them for you, and some orchards have apples all year round, so some places you'll actually be able to get apples in the winter time too if they have cold storage. So call around to some different places and see what you can find. Some are just seasonal, but you'll be surprised at the different places you can find apples really inexpensively, even for around 50 cents a pound, and it makes this a lot more economical. First, you need to peel, core, and slice your apples into large chunks and just throw them in the crock pot. You don't have to measure the apples. I used about 25 apples in this recipe. As you can see, my crock pot isn't completely full, and I actually should have put a few more apples in because I ended up with 3.5 pint jars instead of 4. If I would have put a few more apples in there, it would have filled up that 4th jar. So put as many apples in there as you can. You don't have to peel them. If you don't peel them, then you would need to run them through a food mill when you're done to get the peels off, and I chose not to do that because that's just another step, and it didn't take me that long to peel them. So if you peel them now, you're not going to have to mess with them as much later. And at this point, you also want to add the 1 tablespoon of lemon juice and 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. Now you want to put the lid on the crock pot and just let it cook overnight. So you want to do this in the evening after dinner and just put the lid on it. Don't put any water in it. Don't put anything besides the lemon juice and the vanilla extract in it, and just turn it on low heat and forget about it till the morning. In the morning, you'll notice that the apples have cooked down to about half of what they were. They'll be brown now, which is fine, and there'll be a little bit of liquid in the bottom of the pan. Now I like to mash my apples with a potato masher. Just gently mash them around a little bit. Next, it's time to add the sugar and the spices. I usually add a cup of white sugar and a cup of brown sugar. As far as the spices go, this is totally a matter of taste. I put in at least a tablespoon of cinnamon. You could put up to 2 tablespoons. And I don't usually measure my cloves and nutmeg. I just put a teaspoon in of each and taste it and see what you think. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just a matter of how much flavor you want. And same with the sugar. If you don't want this much sugar, you can put less sugar in. You can put more sugar in. It will not affect the recipe. After you've stirred the sugar in, you need to cook it for at least 2 to 3 more hours. This is what it looks like before I cooked it again, after I put the sugar in. And after 2 or 3 hours, there's still a little bit of liquid in it, but it's not as much as there was, and it should be a lot thicker now. Now I like to use an immersion blender to blend it up really well. You don't have to do this, but it won't be as smooth a consistency if you don't. If you don't have an immersion blender, you could also put it in a regular blender, but it's really hot at this point, so you need to be careful not to burn yourself if you do take it out of the pan. Immersion blenders are only about $20, and they're wonderful for canning and cooking, that you just put the blender in your pan while you're cooking and blend it, and they're really neat. So this is what it looked like after I used the immersion blender on it. It's nice and smooth. But again, it's optional. You don't even have to blend it at all. It's just a matter of how you want the consistency. Next, we're going to sterilize the jars, rings, and lids in the dishwasher. If you are reusing jars, then you're going to have to use new lids. You can reuse rings and jars, but you cannot reuse lids. You need to have new lids. And when those are done washing, you can fill your canner, or while they're washing actually, you need to fill your canner up about 3/4 of the way full with water and start it heating up to start boiling. Now while all that's going on, you can start ladling your hot apple butter into the hot sterilized jars. When you're filling the jars, you want to leave about a 1/2 inch head space. The head space is the amount of room between the top of the apple butter and the top of the jar. The reason you need to leave room is because the apple butter will expand while it's being heated when it's being processed, and if you fill it too far to the top of the jar, then it could explode. And when it cools off, it will go back down again. So make sure you leave about a 1/2 inch head space so that there's room for it to expand. After you have filled the jars, you want to use a damp paper towel or dish towel to wipe off the edges of the jar. Your lids will not get a good seal if there's anything on the jar, so make sure they're clean. and then place the lids and rings on the jars and screw them on until they're tight, but not super tight, just finger tight. Next, place the jars in your pan of hot water, and if it's not boiling yet, it's okay. You can put the jars in and keep heating it till it starts boiling. And after it starts boiling, you can set the timer for 10 minutes, and that is for elevation 1,000 feet and below. If you live above 1,000 foot in elevation, you need to increase your processing time. There's a chart that I've included with your course materials that includes the altitude adjustments. So if you need to do that, then take a look at that chart. You'll need to process a little bit longer if you're higher in altitude. After the 10 minutes are up, use the jar lifter to remove the jars from the counter and set them on the counter to cool. Let the jars sit on the counter until they're completely cooled off. When the jars seal, you should hear a pinging noise. If they don't seal, the way you can tell they're sealed is if you press your finger in the middle of them. If they go down and pop back up again, then it is not sealed. The lid should be flat. If it's not sealed, it's okay. You can just put it in the refrigerator and eat it within the next couple weeks. And you can also do the same thing if I ended up with 3.5 pint jars, so that last half a pint I can't can because it wasn't full, so I just put it in the refrigerator. You can store sealed jars in a dark, cool area for 1 to 2 years or more. And that's it. Hopefully that made sense to you, and I enjoyed being here today. I look forward to showing you how to make some more fun things in the future. We'll see you next time.